Today marks the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, one of the most important and most impactful pieces of legislation to come out of the 20th century. Law signed right there by Lyndon Johnson on July 2nd, 1964. Its mission was pretty simple: equality or something approaching it. Equality in voting registration, schools, ending segregation at work, and by any entity that serves the general public. But like all laws, the Civil Rights Act, it continues to evolve. And in many ways, it's been under attack more in our era than at any time since its passage. Now, back in April, the LBJ Library in Austin, Texas, hosted a Civil Rights Summit in honor of the anniversary. And the roster, it was full of some of the biggest names in the civil rights movement. Among them, former head of the NAACP, Julian Bond, and he spoke with Andrew.
And Rich, Julian Bond wasn't just an advocate. I mean, he was, whose work helped lead to the Civil Rights Act. He was the founder of the Southern Poverty Law Center and a beneficiary of that act as well. Its passage enabled Bond to become one of the first black lawmakers elected in the South when he became a Georgia House member in 1965. We spoke about the Civil Rights Act over the past half century and its future in today's political climate.
Where are we today on civil rights compared to where you thought we'd be in 1964 when the Civil Rights Act was signed?
Well, it's not a sort of thing that you can say, well, we've come forward 10 times or 50 times or 40 times. We've made progress. This is a different country than it was 50 years ago. And in many ways, it's a better country, and it's a country that's going to get better. But we still have things we've not done, haven't paid enough attention to, haven't been successful at it, and we need to focus on those things.
Are you afraid of some of the trends that we've seen recently, the Supreme Court rulings on Voting Rights Act, on voting restrictions around the country, affirmative action, that sort of thing, and the direction that there may be some blowback against civil rights progress?
I'm terribly afraid that we're taking steps backward on voting rights, on affirmative action, on a number of things that we're not doing what we should do. But I've always been an optimist. I've always believed the best things can happen. And so we'll just have to wait and see and work harder. Work much harder than we're working now.
What do you make of when you hear people, especially white conservative Americans, cry out reverse racism or somehow white Americans are being disadvantaged as a result of things like affirmative action or rulings under the Civil Rights Act?
I say to myself, what have you been drinking? What have you been smoking? There's something wrong with your thought processes. These things you're fearful about are not happening. Think about it a little while, and I think you'll feel better.
But is there a way to change their minds short of something like that?
I don't know. I hope so, because I think they're wrong and wrong-headed. They're not wrong people, but they're wrong-thinking people. And if they think carefully about it, they'll feel better.
Finally, in 1964, most of the movement on civil rights was on racial equality, but the Civil Rights Act has been applied in so many different areas: gender equality, sexual preference, and so many other areas. Was that part of the thinking in 1964 when it passed? Did you expect that there would be progress in so many different venues?
I certainly didn't, and I don't think most people did. It's amazing, and I'm happy to see that others have profited from work I did and work I thought was aimed at people exactly like me. I'm happy to be able to have helped other people, and I hope I can find other ways to help other people in the future. I'll
sneak one last question in if I can.
Folks
at home who are watching and thinking, what can I do to get involved and to help in progress for civil rights? What would you suggest to somebody?
I'd say you can join an organization. There are many organizations around the country that do this kind of work. All you have to do is look in the telephone book and find one, look on the internet and find one or two, look at all of them, find which one's best suited to you and join it. Say, here I am, I'd like to help. That's one thing you could do. You give money to an organization that's doing this kind of work. They all need money, no matter who they are, where they are, and you can engage your neighbors and make sure they join with you. If you do those three things, we'll be a better country tomorrow morning.
One common theme I heard in Austin in April, a lot of concern about the future of the Civil Rights Act given the Supreme Court ruling last year. The hope is that Congress would revisit it and perhaps strengthen it, but of course, nobody seems to have much hope that Congress can revisit anything and strengthen anything at this point.
Get anything done. Oh, well, and that's a perfect segue, because when we come back, Andrew, Dominic, and I are going to talk about, with the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act, whether that same law, think about this, could that actually pass this Congress today in 2014, just giving basic equal rights here to all Americans regardless of color? Think about that. We're going to talk about that after this.